All right, we now move to college football in the preseason coaches poll produced by USA Today, some other thing. It's a whole bunch of racket, as you just said before we got on live. But Alabama is the preseason number one in the coaches poll by a pretty significant margin, if I remember correctly. Dabo Swinney's Clemson Tigers are number two, Lincoln Riley and Oklahoma Sooners are third. And then Ohio State and Georgia round out the top five. You've also got Texas A&M, Notre Dame, Iowa State, North Carolina, and Cincinnati representing the group of five in the 10th spot. Drink, over to you, man. What stands out to you in this preseason college football poll?
Oh yeah, baby. You know what time it is. The first thing that stands out to me, we getting closer, folks. When that AP preseason poll drop, then you know what time it is. We gonna be within T minus whatever days before we get into this action. But nonetheless, let me get back to the subject at hand. Listen, Alabama pulled. I think they pulled 62 of the 63 first place votes.
Oh, okay.
I thought that was a little bit, huh?
Yo, I was just what I didn't know the votes. I had read somewhere that it was a significant margin. I didn't realize it was that significant.
Oh yeah, it was. It was. I
I
was
like to.
blown away. I was
Can we
like,
get an interview with the? Can we get an interview with the one dissenting vote?
right. I mean, I want to know. I'm assuming that one vote went to Oklahoma. I don't know why. Without looking at it, I'm assuming it went to Oklahoma because I thought, and this is the coaches poll, so the AP poll might still come out this way. I thought it was going to either be Alabama or Oklahoma number one. But the coaches poll is it's not to knock down the significance of it, but it's more of a copy and paste thing. I don't think the coaches really go into the critical thinking of their poll. Unlike the media, the media give you something like Coastal Carolina be like number 9, and you be like what? Like what? What? So we'll see with the AP poll. But listen, you seen that number 25 team? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
the time the Lane Kiffin era is starting out with a bang. I think the rest of the country seen what Ole Miss did last year, and they're thinking, hey, Ole Miss might be a team to look at, and Lane Kiffin got them humming. Group of five teams. Listen, when we was making our leagues, we made our 32 team league. If college football was a super league. And we was talking about the group of five teams that would possibly make that. I'm looking Cincinnati. You know what? Cincinnati just need to join the conference. I'm starting to really Cincinnati. You got a little something to you. Like Lou Fickle got something going on now. They're one of those group of five teams. Honestly, like they kind of strike me, kind of like. I don't know, like Boise State back in the day. Like they was a group of five team, but they was always playing with the big boys. They looked at just as convincing as the big boys. It's not like the BYU thing where, oh man, we look good until we play 18. That's not even a group of five team, but just 18 that was ready to play and they smacked us around. Cincinnati just strikes me as a team that can keep up with the big boys when given the opportunity. But like I was saying, Cincinnati. We got Cincinnati, we got UF Lafayette, which is Louisiana Lafayette, and then we got Coastal Carolina, and I think those are the three group of five teams in the top. Okay, I think that's impressive. Look, you got 3 teams in the top 25. Now, can you capitalize on that group of 5? I would like to think so, but I thought that was impressive. That now because of the COVID year we had last year. A lot of group of 5 teams, I think, are going to get some, I ain't going to say a fully fair shake, but somewhat of a fair shake. Coastal Carolina, if it was not for the COVID season last year, would we really be talking about Coastal Carolina? Like, really? This is a team, Coastal Carolina is definitely a team that benefited from what happened last year. Because they wasn't even on the map before last year. You know what I'm saying? Stop me when I'm lying, but they wasn't on the map. Then I moved on to the Big 12. Rightfully so. Why am I talking about the Big 12? You know why I'm talking about the Big 12. Because the main events are leaving the arena sometime soon, right? And so now I'm wondering. I'm like, well, what do the rest of the nation think about the rest of the Big 12? Because I know what we think about the rest of the Big 12, but what do everybody else think about? So I look at, we got Iowa State coming in at number 8. Okay, I'm looking. We got, that's crazy. Oklahoma is 3. Iowa is 8. And then you don't get another Big 12 team until Texas at 19.
Yep.
And Oklahoma State at 22. That's the list.
Yep.
Woo! And they wonder why the Big 12 upset about Texas and Oklahoma leaving. But yeah, Big 12 look like they got 4. And then the Pac-12. Of course, you know I had to go find the Pac-12. I'm looking at the Pac-12. I'm like, we got Oregon at 12. We how fun is that? Pac-12, Oregon at 12. USC at 14. You like what I did there?
Yes.
And then Washington at 21. So
That's it.
The Pac. Yo, the group of 5 got just as many teams in the top 25 as the Pac-12. Disrespect.
The Big 12 reminds me, like, almost as if like we're on an exercise and we're in the teardown stage, and they still better than the Pac-12. Yeah. Yeah.
Yo, that if you read into this poll, it's some truth to that. It's like really? That's it? Pac-12? That's all you got? Yeah. Giving us 3 hot ones? And Washington looked like it was a gamble because, I mean, of the 4 teams that's behind Washington, 2 of them are group of 5 teams. So, I mean,
yeah.
that could have went either way. All right. And then, at the top of the heat, we got the 2 powerhouses that's usually always around, Alabama and Clemson. As I see it, we got Alabama. We got Alabama and Georgia in the top 5, so they get an SEC 2 top 5 teams in the coaches poll, and then you got Clemson, Oklahoma, and Ohio State. So there's one for each conference in their respective conference. What's interesting though is now I want to say for about the 3rd year in a row, you get Alabama, Georgia, and Texas A&M in the top 10. And you usually sprinkle in Auburn somewhere in the top 10, but I guess people started to figure out Bo Nix ain't it, and then they fired their coach Malzahn. So it seems for the first time in a very long time, Auburn is not even ranked in the top 25 at all.
Yeah.
So that is very surprising. I'm being an Alabama fan, I'm used to where's Alabama, where's Auburn. No Auburn this year. So I think that's interesting. That's very, very interesting. And then as I go outside the top 10, Florida at 11. I think Florida might they overrated. I'm gonna tell you right now, Florida overrated. LSU at 13. That might be an underrated ranking for me. I think LSU will bounce back and be a top 10 team. And like we done talked about Ed Orgeron already. I don't think it'll be because of him. I just think you have too much accumulated talent to duplicate what you did last year. I think LSU will come in and be a different team. And then I look down, kudos to Indiana. They hang around at 17. I'm interested to see how they build off the season that they had last year. I want to know if Indiana really making strides in the program, or if they was just a one-hit wonder last year because of COVID. Because a lot of these teams, right, like I just said about Coastal Carolina, they benefited off the COVID like surroundings of last season. I want to know teams like Indiana. Let me see you do this again. Let me see you be a surprise stalemate for the Big Ten. Coastal Carolina, Louisiana Lafayette. Now is your time. If you can duplicate what you did last season, this season, then we're talking about something. Matter of fact, hey, Louisiana Lafayette, Billy Napier is gone. If y'all duplicate anything close to what you did last season, you're losing your coach. Coastal Carolina, you might do that too. You're losing your coach, right? When you take some no-name franchises and put them on the map, you're gonna lose your coach. But with that said, man, long story short, I think it's kind of telling that the Pac-12 have less teams than the Group of 5 in the top 10. I think it's kind of telling that the Big 12 only have 4 teams, 2 of which are going to be out here on the first thing smoking. And then, I'm looking. I don't know. Iowa State, I think they overrated. Iowa State at 8, they're overrated. Florida at 11, they're overrated. LSU at 13, I think is underrated. I'm looking at it was another team I thought was underrated too. I had 2 and 2. I just seen it. But a team like I'm telling you, and a team like Wisconsin, right at 15, I kind of think they underrated too. I think Wisconsin might have a very good chance of being a top 10 program. Not, of course, Ohio State is the top of the heat, but I think Wisconsin has every bit of the claim for the number 2 team in the Big Ten as any other team. Michigan, Penn State, you name them. I think they got a good shot at the number 2 team overall. So overall, man, I mean, it's a good starting point. I'm happy we got it because that means football is coming. But when that AP poll come out, I kind of take that one a little more serious because I think the media members do a little more due diligence than the coaches. Coaches like penciling them in kind of. So when the AP poll come out, we're gonna revisit this, and then you'll get a more deeper, insighted, energetic look on that one because I do just feel like that one is kind of like the All-Pro and the Pro Bowl team thing we always talk about in the NFL. I tend to think the All-Pro I take that a little more serious than Pro Bowl because everybody a Pro Bowler. So yeah, man. With that said, that's my outlook on the coaches on the USA Today preseason coaches poll. No longer the Amway coaching poll, but USA Today. That's my outlook on it, Jay. What say you?
Oh well, as usual, we always looking at these polls with great anticipation. Not 100% sure what to make of it because as you well know, the NFL offseason is the one that's so publicized with the draft. It's a public spectacle. The free agency gets all the attention in the world. All these different. And we also we can see like on NFL Network or whatever it is. We can get some insight into some of the the training camp battles. It's way more difficult to drill down and just pay attention to every college team across the country and draw a good conclusion. So for me, like the preseason polls are always kind of a crapshoot, but I think there are some just takeaways when you look at it. First of all, I just got to say it's great to have some new blood in the top 4. Oh wait, it seemed like the same old dudes that's always in there. And of course, you got the typical next man up like Georgia. Georgia's the perennial dude outside the door, trying to knock on the hey, can we get back in there? So obviously nothing really has changed at the top all that much. It is kind of for me. I think it's good to see Texas A&M back in there and looking like hey, we trying to knock on in there. Will you move Georgia? Let us in there. And they had a great season last year. I think some of the things you said about the pandemic shortened season or whatever, however we look at that Texas A&M to me is another team. Maybe did they benefit from the pandemic? I don't know, but I do know they were pretty excellent last year. They were knocking on the door when the SEC West just couldn't beat Alabama, if I remember correctly. So we'll see. That's another team I'm looking at. Can you replicate this success, and are you for real now? We know they got a quarterback change as well. Keep an eye on that. As you go down, Iowa State does kind of leave you kind of. That's really Iowa State. I don't. That's not a team. I mean, you want to throw them in the top 25. I get it, but Matt Campbell making that much noise out there, huh? Or is that right? But I guess we'll see. That it is weird that you have Iowa State in the top 10, and then a big gap, as you say, to Texas and then Oklahoma State. So, but when you break it down by conference, I'm counting the SEC having 6 with Bama, Georgia, Texas A&M, Florida, and LSU. So, and the Big Ten has 5. But the big difference to me is because I think those conferences are kind of comparable. But as usual, I think the SEC is looking a little more top heavy. They got multiple elites. You understand what I'm saying? Ohio State is really carrying the water for the Big Ten because the first 5 SEC teams is in, the top 13, and then but you have to go to Wisconsin at 15 to get another Big Ten team. So we'll see how that works. I do, Indiana is a team that bears watching because I thought they were pretty impressive last year. I like what they're doing up there in Indiana, and Iowa and Penn State. You got to always pay attention to them somewhat. Kurt Ferentz gonna come out there and just do enough to stick around up there. And James Franklin at Penn State. Penn State's a team, like when you look at them at 20th. I think that's somewhat disappointing. That's a team you'd like to see back in the top 10, but if I'm looking at the Big Ten, I think hopefully, one of those teams, particularly probably Wisconsin, Penn State, hopefully one of those teams can step up and be kind of get that we have a team that we can look at and say, oh man, that team look like a playoff team. Maybe they can give Ohio State a run for their money, So Pac-12, ACC, the old ho-hum, just got a couple dudes in there. At least the ACC gives you the honor of Clemson just doing what they have to do and just always being around in the top 4. You got to wait till Oregon at 12 to even recognize the Pac-12, as you say. So I think maybe like another team, if I'm just like being generous to the Pac-12, maybe in Arizona State with Herm Edwards. So that's a team I'm perhaps thinking about. I do think the ACC is kind of.
Hold on, Jay. I'm sorry. But you brought something to my attention. Yo, the ACC only have 2 teams.
They got 3. They got Clemson, North Carolina, and Miami. Miami's sneaking in there as well.
Oh, okay. I missed. No, I seen Miami. I missed North Carolina. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Like,
and also like I don't know what Notre Dame. I'm almost looking at them as a quasi ACC team. I think they back to independent status this year. That last year they joined the ACC. Just getting the ACC and help us out because they need a little extra. But then certainly when you look at some of the that's kind of break it down by conference, but certainly some of the things that some of the individual teams that stand out besides Iowa State being that high is Cincinnati. Cincinnati grabbing the 10th spot right off the bat is pretty impressive, I would say, especially when you look at some of the teams right below them. When Florida, Oregon, and LSU are behind you, and even USC, Wisconsin, like the storied programs that Cincinnati is in front of, and then you take a look. I came away very impressed with Cincinnati last year. Thought they deserved a shot at the college football playoff, all the way up to the final the selection. And now you look at that and you say, well, you think about if Cincinnati can run the table, will they have a shot? Because you think about it, you got to believe some of these teams, like for example, we really think Iowa State is gonna get it done and just set the world on fire and go up there and go toe to toe with Oklahoma. I'm not sure. I am sure. I'm not sure that they're not doing it. How about what about? You got to figure out A&M. They're gonna have one of those games where they just slip up. It is the SEC. I'm just saying, an undefeated Cincinnati team. I'd like to see what that if they can go undefeated. Obviously, that's somewhat of an if. I don't think you can ever just say, oh man, they're going undefeated. Forget about it. But if they can do that, it'd be interesting to what a Cincinnati undefeated Group of 5 resume looks like against a 1-loss Power 5 team. A 2-loss Power 5 team. I think I'll take the undefeated team over 2 losses, but I think that's something worth watching. If they're starting at 10, it's kind of like one of them things. If they go undefeated, it should be within reason that they could move up that far. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Well, no, and I'm with you, but it just comes to that theory. It's like, okay, cool, they start at 10. Let's say, Ole Miss, for example, starting at 25. If Ole Miss went out here, and because I think Ole Miss played Georgia and Texas A&M, and of course they play Alabama. Yo, let's say went out here and beat the brakes off Texas A&M. For a fact, Ole Miss is jumping Cincinnati.
That's right. That's true. That's right.
It's not like I think we get caught up in that's a slap to Cincinnati face. Yeah, but you have to award the team behind them that playing the better competition. Right. You know what I'm saying? We're not just trying to exclude them because of that, but I get what you're saying. If you start at 10, you should be able to balance out that. I'm going to tell you like this, though, like you just said. Cincinnati and Clemson is in the same situation, essentially, this year. You go out there, you lose a game, you're done. Because Cincinnati's schedule probably tougher than Clemson's this year. Clemson got
Oh,
one game on their schedule that's worth a root, unless Miami like comes alive or something. But they play Georgia in game one. They lose to Georgia in game one, you can go ahead and get them up out of here. But I do agree with what you're saying about Cincinnati in the 10th spot.
and that is actually a good, and it seems like it's an annual conversation about Clemson in the schedule,
Right.
because it's not the same as it was over there in the Atlantic. If I'm looking at, because it used to be like Florida State would be a team that could like make noise for you, and we're uncertain of what they may look like. We'll have to check with our Jacksonville correspondent on that one, at some point. But I think definitely when you look at this poll and you just look at it in a vacuum, the other two ACC teams there are North Carolina and Miami, and we know they play in the Coastal. So definitely a great point. The other thing, and the last quick point on that Ole Miss point you brought, I think that's definitely a valid point. Like an undefeated Power 5 team, you got to believe that they're going to get the edge over the undefeated Group of 5 team, no question. But if Ole Miss is to jump in front of Cincinnati, that most likely means that one or two of those SEC teams above Cincinnati, they're likely going to drop out, by virtue of just losing to Ole Miss at some point, I would imagine. Especially A&M and Alabama being on the west side of the conference. The other thing that I'm looking at is I'm looking in about the I'd say 13 through 19, and I'm just zoning in on that. The teams that I'm looking at: LSU, Southern Cal, Miami, and Texas. Though, and maybe I give LSU a break on this, because we know LSU had a bad year last year, but at least before that they won the title. So maybe it's more fair to focus on Southern Cal, Miami, and Texas. These three teams all fall into the same category for me. They all got all the program prestige in the world. But my God, it's been a long time since we heard from them in a serious manner. That's kind of what I'm getting at. So what is this? Like, is this 14, 16, 19 thing real? Is this a real thing? Or are we just going to look in a couple months? Are we going to be back here and we're like, well, I don't know. I don't know why they was even in the preseason poll. Like, how long can you just ride the prestige train to these preseason rankings? I'm not sure.
See, okay, I'm gonna guess USC maybe because they brought back Clay Helton and maybe they pulled some guy. They did have a pretty decent recruiting class, so I'm assuming that's why they there. I know why Miami is number 16. Transfer portal. That's why they number 16. The Aaron King and the transfer portal. And then Texas, I think a lot of people are hyped about Steve Sarkisian first year after seeing what he did at Alabama last year, and the fact that he did, get some talent. So I think, to be honest, and it's funny you pointed out those three teams. I really do think, like you said, USC, they recruited well, so people say, hey, put them out there. Miami went and got all the good talent out the transfer portal, and they bring it back, De'Aaron King that got a lot of hype behind him. And for Texas, I think it's just Steve Sarkisian.
And that's okay, and that's fair. And I'll defer to you on that, but I just feel compelled to ask the question, because I think you understand my point of what I'm getting at. Like, these are three schools that, like, Texas, since Vince Young, haven't heard from him. USC, since Pete Carroll and all that, haven't heard from him. And Miami, damn it, it's been longer than that. These guys ain't done nothing since they joined the ACC, and that's going on at least 15 years, I believe. So, but that's a wrap on the preseason coaches poll, and we will be back with the AP poll whenever that releases.